Hey everyone, so today I wanted to actually go through some really cool articles that I came across that I wanted to share with you guys just so you can learn a little bit more about, a little bit of different topics in healthcare and medicine. So hopefully it's some stuff that you guys haven't heard before. But some of this was really cool. Some of this was stuff that I hadn't actually, researched and looked into yet, but I've seen in some of my patients. So this first one I want to share with you guys was really cool. Gut related problems affect the eyes. Now, I've seen this in my practice. I just didn't know why. I've had a couple people who have told me that after we're done working together, or like while we're still working together, they're detoxing, they're healing the gut, they're healing, those drainage pathways, gallbladder, the liver. We're getting infections out of the body, we're getting toxins out of the body. All of a sudden, they can actually start seeing better. So I had one woman who all of a sudden didn't need her glasses anymore. As we were detoxing, her vision improved so much that she just didn't need glasses. So that was really, really cool. And I talk about this a lot. If you guys go back and look at my previous videos about how, we know that the whole body works together as a whole. That's one of the biggest problems with Western medicine is that they've segmented medicine far too much where, you can't treat a gut issue without addressing the brain or the hormones or the immune system. They all function together. And, same with the gut and so many other systems. The gut can create hormone issues. It can create, even lung issues. The gut bacteria actually communicate with your lungs, which is kind of crazy. I didn't know that until recently. But the gut also helps regulate, mental health and so many functions in the body. Things that make you happy, neurological health. It's considered your second brain. And now vision issues, which makes sense, right? It's like if your gut is the second brain, I have this little brain poster back here, so it's like perfect for this video. But yeah, if your gut is the second brain, of course, it's going to affect and influence brain function. And I actually did this with people back when I was doing neurology as a chiropractor. I would do gut manipulation, like actually doing soft tissue work in the gut to get people after a concussion to get their nervous system to calm down. So you can activate it through what's called the vagus nerve. It's pretty cool stuff. Just doing really light sensory work in the gut can actually improve brain function. So I already knew this, but it's just really cool to see, okay, if we're cleaning up the gut, if we're removing toxins, removing infections, healing that gut lining, your vision can actually improve. So this article is really cool. It just talks about how gut-related problems affect the eyes. And about this doctor who have a lot of respect for this doctor because he basically says you need to look outside the realm of the eye. Every good doctor does this, you guys. If you ever go to a doctor and they don't just focus on your problem area, but they ask you about everything, that's because they know what they're doing. They know the whole body's connected. They know that everything influences everything else. And that it's so important to just look beyond the disease state in the body to see what is going on to get a full picture of how your overall health is doing, because everything works together, you guys. So he says you have to be a detective when you look at eye diseases. What goes on in the gut is reflected in the eye. So cool. So it's really, really awesome. And it talks about how, a lot of people think it's weird that an eye doctor asks about your gut health. I think it's amazing. I think more doctors should do this. The more they learn about other systems and realize how much they overlap and how much they influence each other, I think you'll start seeing this a lot more in medicine. So it's really awesome that this guy is doing that. But he basically says it's essential to explore the bi-directional relationship between eye health and your gut. Microbiota just means the microbiome in your gut. So it's like the balance of, good and bad bacteria. It's like the simplest way that we simplify that. But your gut bacteria produce nutrients, they absorb nutrients, they produce hormones, they regulate hormones, they produce serotonin and dopamine, which makes you happy, those feel-good chemicals in the brain. So they do so much for your body. And if you don't have a good balance of bacteria in the gut, that's when chronic disease starts. That's when, your hormones get out of whack. That's when, mental health can go awry and all these things that I've talked about in previous videos. So really, really cool that this doctor is, noticing the difference. In this, and he actually talks about leaky gut, which for those of you who don't know, leaky gut is basically where the barrier in your gut lining becomes so inflamed and damaged from toxins, from infections, from stress. It's a big one that can create leaky gut, that it actually starts to become way too permeable or way too open. And now you get things like toxins, infections, and in this case, bacteria from the gut slipping into your bloodstream and going systemic. And one of the places they can lodge themselves is in the eye and create inflammation. But they just create systemic inflammation in the body. Leaky gut is known to be the precursor to all autoimmune disease. It causes so many different, issues with people, but you don't want all that toxic waste going systemic because it could lodge anywhere in the body, joints, muscle tissue, the brain, liver, kidneys, anywhere in the body and just wreak havoc and cause a ton of inflammation. So it makes sense. Like if that barrier breaks down and those toxins are going systemic, they could end up in your eye. You could get inflammation in your eyes that could, affect your ability to see, could create, visual diseases, things like that. So yeah, it just talks about how that, the bacteria can kind of slip through in the leaky gut and actually create those issues in the eye. So really cool article. I thought it was fascinating because I've seen that happen with patients where they notice their vision gets better, and it's just really cool. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Maybe it's just the gut-brain connection. I don't really know why, but that's cool. And that's what happens, you guys. It's like when you heal the root cause, when you start with the gut first, you'll see every system in your body improve, even systems that you didn't know were a problem until they get better. And you're just like, oh, I didn't notice my gums were so swollen, but now that they're not, I can definitely tell my teeth look more normal, and my gums aren't red anymore. They're like a nice pink color. My teeth are whiter. I've had so many people get really big improvements in the health of their mouth, have fewer cavities, not see as much plaquing, have better gum health, things like that. So there's so many things that the gut is connected to. And it's just cool to have, like a researcher kind of explain the link between intestinal permeability and dysbiosis, which is an imbalance of that good and bad bacteria, can affect your eyes, which is kind of crazy. So yeah. Alrighty. Yeah. And he calls it the gut-eye axis. Didn't know that was a thing. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, so he says that basically the loss of integrity in the gut increases, the ability for these bacteria to basically move to another part of the body and pass into that retina in the eye and create a lot of inflammation and other issues in there. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, that was super awesome. But yeah, eye disease is linked to gut health. So there's all sorts of issues that can indicate gut dysfunction in someone. So dry eyes. Studies have noted an increase or decrease in certain bacteria that coincide with different forms. Glaucoma, so that's interesting because everyone always tells you glaucoma, a lot of times it's a result of metabolic issues or, too much sunlight exposure in the eyes. You weren't wearing sunglasses enough. If you're from Florida, that's what you grew up hearing. So I'm from Florida. But intestinal dysbiosis, so again, an imbalance of that good and bad bacteria, an overgrowth of, bacteria that you don't want growing in there. And glaucoma, there's a huge, connection between the two. So, and this is really important, you guys, because if you have increased eye pressure that's damaging that nerve going to your eye, it can lead to blindness. So really, really important. Again, with most health issues, start in the gut. Hippocrates even said it, all disease begins in the gut, all of it. It's amazing how crazy, how much your body can heal if you just start with the root cause of all those issues, which is your gut. So yeah, and he just goes through and lists all these issues that can be related to, gut bacteria and increased intestinal permeability or leaky gut. So if you're looking at research and you want to find out more about leaky gut, just look for intestinal permeability, increased intestinal permeability. So that's how you find it in research. But yeah, so really, really fascinating. He also found that it's a loss of those good bacteria in the gut. So it's a big, big thing is, toxins can wipe out good bacteria. Infections like parasites, fungus, mold can wipe out those bacteria. Heavy metals can wipe them out. So it's so important to have a good gut microbiome. That is where you should start with every healing process is, start with the gut, make sure there's good soil there, and then look at other systems and heal those. But you've got to have good gut. That's also the main way that toxins get out of your body. So if you don't have good gut health, you can't get toxic waste out. So super, super important. Diabetes in eyes is a big one. We've already known this for a while because, a lot of diabetic patients get a lot of that retinopathy in the eyes. So yeah, this is a pretty cool article. It goes over a lot of tips on, how to keep your gut healthy and your eyes healthy. But I just thought that was fascinating that there's just such a clear relationship, and they're linking now leaky gut with eye issues, which is really fascinating. So I just want to share that with you guys. Another thing I want to talk about, because I realize I don't really address this enough and I should more, because I see it so often. So I have a lot of people who reach out to me with iron deficiency, and they're like, no doctor can figure out what the heck is going on. I see a lot of iron deficiency, you guys. The top two things I see are parasites and heavy metals. So heavy metals, number one, will leach your body of minerals. It could be zinc, it could be iron, copper, it just really depends on the person and the type of heavy metal that it could leach from your body. So heavy metals will leach minerals from your body, including iron. Iron is incredibly important, you guys, because that's what transports oxygen on your red blood cells. So if you don't have iron, you can't transport oxygen to your brain, to the rest of your body. So you get a ton of energy and fatigue issues if you have a really bad iron deficiency, and it can lead to anemia, which is really, really bad because then you get massive energy tanks throughout the day, and it's just really hard to function. So, and a lot of people ask me, why would parasites cause iron deficiency? Great question, you guys. So parasites, if you guys missed that video, check out my last podcast episode. I went all in on parasites. You guys want to know more info on that, go check that video out. But iron, basically what happens is parasites, a really common symptom that people will get who come and see me is they have what's called migrating joint pain. So that just means one day their shoulder will hurt, the next day it's their hip, the next day it's their neck, the next day it's their low back. Nothing adds up. It doesn't seem to be biomechanical. It doesn't seem to be a muscle or a joint issue. In fact, it's those parasites that can actually move throughout the body. As they move through the body, they damage tissues. They have these like thick sucker things that basically like tear through tissues and cause a lot of microbleeding throughout the body. So all of that bleeding can lead to iron deficiency because iron is found in your blood. So that's something I see with a lot of people who have parasites is they have low iron. And once we get the parasites out, their iron goes up, their energy is better. Obviously, there's other things that can cause those energy issues. And heavy metals and parasites are usually found together. So those are the two causes that I see personally. I know there's a lot of other things that can cause iron deficiency, especially gut issues. If you have leaky gut, you can't absorb nutrients. Like it's almost impossible because you've broken down so many layers of that gut. You've destroyed the good bacteria that help absorb nutrients in your body. So anything you're putting in your body, even if you're taking an iron supplement, it's really hard for your gut to actually absorb that nutrient. So it's just going right through you. And then you're putting a lot of stress on the kidneys, or your body will try to detox through your skin or through your bladder. Or no, I just said kidneys, but it'll do your skin, your kidneys, and your lungs. That's the other organ I was thinking of. And so people can have so many issues from leaky gut. It causes a ton of issues, including nutrient deficiencies. But in terms of infections and toxins, parasites, heavy metals, those are the top two I see. They almost always found together because parasites use heavy metals as a shield to kind of hide from your immune system. So got to make sure you address both of them. But obviously, make sure you get tested to see what is the root cause before you start trying to remove stuff that might not be there. So just wanted to cover that because I see iron deficiency a lot. I get a ton of questions about it on Instagram from you guys. So definitely something to consider is if you've been dealing with that for a while, because this study basically says that people after 3 years of having iron deficiency, they're still ending up in the hospital because there's not really good treatment therapies for it. Doctors don't really tell them why they have iron deficiency, and they don't really offer a lot of treatments for it. The only one I've heard from people in terms of Western medicine is iron transfusions, like just getting an IV of iron, which knocks people out for weeks. Like it messes with their energy a lot. So it's, you guys, you got to get to the root cause. That's the moral of all of this is, yes, a nutrient deficiency is there. It doesn't mean you need to add a nutrient to fix it, because a lot of the times it's an issue absorbing nutrients, and it's an issue producing nutrients in the body that creates a lot of these nutrient deficiencies. So usually it's because the gut lining's damaged by an infection or a toxin or chronic stress, or the gut lining is so damaged that you can't absorb, nutrients. So those are the biggest things I see, but I just want to chat on that because I know I hear that question so much from people, and I haven't really chatted much on it. Another article talks about how, because if you guys are following me, you're obviously interested in gut health because that's what I specialize in. So how industrialization, so basically our modern world, has affected our microbiome. So this article basically talks about how we've lost a lot of the healthy bacteria in our gut that made us, that helped us not get chronic diseases, that helped us have enough energy, that helped us sleep better, that helped us basically do all the functions in our body that we need to. So, pretty fascinating, but it also talks about how, a big part of industrialization is the processing of foods. Like we have so many ultra processed foods in America. I think the last statistic I saw was around 67 to 70% of the food that's produced in America is ultra processed. And what that means is it's gone through some industrial process to create things that you couldn't naturally find in nature, like high fructose corn syrup, seed oils, all those things that we see in food nowadays, dyes, caking agents, preservatives, all that stuff that's in our foods. And it talks about how all these processed foods contain a ton of toxins that can result in mass basically bacterial death in the gut. So again, if your gut bacteria are responsible for regulating hormones, regulating mental health, absorbing nutrients, making sure you have all the nutrients in your body to function, all this food is going to create massive issues in your body, which can lead to chronic disease. And there's so much research on that nowadays. I'm probably going to do an episode on it at some point just to show you guys, because it's just so profound. The farther you go from nature, the closer you get to disease. So the less processed food you can put in your body, the better off you're going to be in all cases. So if it doesn't come from a tree, a bush, a ground, or something mooing on a farm, don't eat it. So yeah, whole foods are the best, you guys. But yeah, it talks a lot about how obviously, we've killed off a lot of good gut microbiomes in our gut. But obviously, yeah, you guys, recovery is possible. It talks about how eating a wide variety of healthy whole foods can actually replenish and replace and restore the good bacteria that our guts have lost. And also, you guys, again, getting to the root cause, is there something in your gut that's destroying that good bacteria? Do you have parasites? Do you have fungus? Do you have mold? Do you have heavy metals? Do you have chronic stress in your life that you've been unable to mitigate? Do you need to incorporate grounding or sunshine every day? Breathing exercises are a great way to just calm that nervous system down and get things functioning well again. So there's so many things you guys can do. We got to figure out, like, what is the cause? Why do you have this issue in the first place? So always getting to the root cause, not just treating the symptoms. That's not a way to heal. It's just a Band-Aid approach that's just going to give you longer term issues down the road. So yeah, obviously food, like pollutants in our environment. I think there's about 75 to 80,000 new chemicals that have been introduced into our food supply, clothing supply, furniture, you name it, into our society in the last, I think it was like 50, 60 years. And most of them are unregulated by the FDA. So they don't have time to check all of these new chemicals being, allowed into our environment nowadays. So a lot of them just go unchecked. And then, 10, 20, 30 years down the road, we realize, oops, this one caused cancer. Sorry, guys. Sorry, all those people who ended up with cancer. We didn't know it at the time because we didn't study it. It wasn't regulated. So we're just exposed to so many toxins nowadays, you guys. It's almost impossible to live a toxin-free life. Just do the best you can. Clean up your food, get the toxins out of your body. Figure out what's going on in your body first. Don't just detox blindly, because I've seen so many people get messed up from doing that. So really understand the functioning of your organs first before trying to remove stuff that's not supposed to be there. All right. And then we get to pesticides. So this is a big topic. A lot of people, the biggest thing I get from people is, I don't want to spend the extra money to buy organic. Great. There's multiple ways you can remove pesticides from your food, which I'm going to talk to you about in this video. So this first article talks about how pesticides potentially as bad as smoking for increased risk of certain cancers. Now, glyphosate or Roundup, which is the most heavily sprayed in the US, horrible, horrible stuff. They've been sued for over $11 billion in lawsuits because they have been shown to cause cancer. And yet this is still allowed to be sprayed in our country. It's baffling. I just don't understand. I mean, I do. I know there's a lot of money and lobbyists and all that stuff, and we just have a lot of corruption in our government and our regulatory agencies, which I will get to in another video because I don't have time for it in this one. But that one specifically has been known to create leaky gut, been known to cause cancer, been known to cause, as I'm going to show you in here, been known to cause other issues as well. But this stuff is toxic to our body. You guys, it's so bad that it makes me so mad that we're even allowed to spray this. And the things that are the most heavily sprayed with glyphosate specifically are wheat, corn, and soy. What's found in pretty much every processed food: wheat, corn, and soy. So always look for organic if you're going to eat those foods. Otherwise, I wouldn't eat it because they're just so heavily sprayed in pesticides. But it's basically saying that pesticides are the new smoking. And, this is stuff that we've been told for decades. Oh, it's safe. It doesn't affect you that much. Just like they said with cigarettes, just like they said with so many things in the past, like, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it. And they're like, whoops, just kidding. It actually has been shown to cause increased risk for various types of cancer. So, yeah, and again, they're still claiming it's too small to pose a threat. Go look at all the lawsuits, you guys, sued for over $11 billion because so many people who are living in the surrounding farmlands that this stuff was sprayed heavily on in the Midwest developed cancer, died from it. Specifically, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was the one that a lot of people were getting. And lymphoma is deadly, you guys. It's not one that you want to mess around with. So pretty bad. But yeah, they were showing the more pesticides you ingest, the higher the cancer is typically in the body. So this is why it's so incredibly important, you guys, to find natural alternatives to weed killers. And if you have your own garden, find another way to keep bugs and all that stuff out of your garden. Do not spray it with this stuff because you're going to end up killing your body. It's not good. Creates leaky gut, which can lead to autoimmune disease. It's known to cause cancer. Causes all sorts of issues, especially in kids. It's known to cause a lot of neurodevelopmental disorders. So really important to keep that stuff away from children. If you want to make an impact on a local level, go to your local government meetings and ask them, are you guys spraying Roundup on the playgrounds and the soccer fields that our kids are playing on? Because that is incredibly important. If your kid struggles with ADHD or any other neurological, developmental disorder, that's something you really want to keep an eye on and try to get it out of your community in whatever small town you live in. So definitely really, really important. So it just talks about a lot of pesticides that are used. But the impact on the health is down here. Well, atrazine, we've known that one for a while. So, that one's real bad. But yeah, glyphosate talks about that. Pro-cancer effect. They've been sued so many times. It's ridiculous that they're still on the market, honestly. So basically it just goes on to talk about all the ways that these pesticides are, creating cancer risk in people and the specific kinds of pesticides. But the biggest thing, guys, is if you can, buy from local farmers markets, buy organic. It may seem more expensive in the short term, but it's going to be so much less expensive in the long term when you don't have all these health issues that you have to pay hospital bills and medical bills for. Because that is, one of the top things that bankrupts people as they get older is medical bills that they can't afford. So invest in yourself now so you don't have to invest in yourself later, so you can actually enjoy retirement, have a better quality of life. If for some reason you're like, hey, I really just can't afford that, totally fine. What you can do is make a mixture of water and baking soda. So just put a few tablespoons of baking soda and water, let your produce sit in that water for about 15 minutes is what most people recommend. That will remove, I believe the article that talked about it was about 99% of pesticide residue, which is crazy. So you can actually create organic produce by just soaking it in water with baking soda, which is super cheap. So if you can't afford it, just try that out. Another one I wanted to show you guys, since we're talking about, risk in kids, pesticide exposure is actually linked to stillbirth risk as well. So if you're pregnant, this is even more important to not expose yourself to a bunch of non-organic fruits and veggies to if you live in an area where you notice a lot of your neighbors are spraying Roundup, or maybe your landlord sprays Roundup or other pesticides, just talk to them and be like, hey, look, I've been researching this stuff. This is what it's showing. I'm pregnant right now. Is there any way that we could, just stop spraying this for a little while until, I'm not pregnant anymore, or get them to completely stop spraying it. But, you guys, knowledge is power. The more you can, kindly educate people on this stuff, the more change you can make in your local community, because change really happens at the local level. It's not going to happen at big government. There's just too much going on right now. Too much corruption between all the agencies in the food industry and big pharma. So start at the local level, go to meetings, tell them like, hey, here's all the research showing what these pesticides can cause. What's an alternative solution? Because I don't want my kid to be affected by it, and I don't want myself to be affected by it. So big thing. But if you guys don't know, so many babies nowadays are being born with over 200 chemicals in their bloodstream, because these toxins, including pesticides, can go right through the placenta into your kid, and it affects their brain primarily because it's not developed. There's not a blood-brain barrier that's protecting the brain from anything in the blood just yet. So that's why kids are so much at risk, especially when you're pregnant, when they're in the first couple of years of life. So it talks about that, I believe, a little bit down here after it goes over ingredients. Yeah, so it talks about how some of them specific ingredients in these pesticides were associated with a doubling of the risk of a stillbirth, which is crazy. So this stuff is really toxic, you guys. It's not something you want to mess around with. Okay, so this is how it talks about how it becomes a fetal threat. So again, it's absorbed through the skin, you inhale it, or you ingest it in your food. So again, really important to make sure your neighbors aren't spraying this stuff. Just, gently and kindly encourage them to find something else to use. Don't be rude to your neighbors, because they probably don't know any better. So Um, Yeah, so if you also, this is also why I talk about you guys detoxing before you get pregnant, because all the chemicals and stuff that's inside your body can go right into the placenta as well. So really, really important that if you want to have kids that you get your blood checked for, a lot of these toxins, pesticides, microplastics, infections, all that stuff. Do a detox with somebody who knows what they're doing, a naturopath, functional medicine doctor, before trying to get pregnant, because otherwise you run the risk of all these chemicals that are in your body going into a newly developing fetus, which can cause a lot of neurological issues in kids. So really, really important, especially with all the research showing hundreds of chemicals in the umbilical blood. Like they literally tested the blood at the hospital in the umbilical cord of these newborn kids, over 200 chemicals in every single test sample, which is wild. So it's not good. We wonder why we have so much illness in kids nowadays. A lot of it's just the toxicity that they're born with and they're exposed to as they're, in their younger years. So it says that during pregnancy, these chemicals can enter a woman's bloodstream and cross the placental wall to harm the developing fetus. They can enter the fetus through the umbilical cord as well. So that's why what you eat as a pregnant mom is so incredibly important for your kid, because that's what nourishes them. And that's what also nourishes their brain. So once pesticides enter the fetus, they generally disrupt neurological functioning and neurotransmitters, which is not good. There's a lot of, I don't think we'll ever really know the answer because there's just so many variables, but the amount of kids being born with autism nowadays, I think they said that by 2030, it's going to be 1 in 2 kids, which is crazy because, back when I was a kid in the 90s, it was maybe like 1 in 10,000 would be autistic. But now we have so many chemicals in our environment. We have, so many things that can affect a developing kid's brain that it's really hard to know, like, what is the actual reason? What's the factor? What's causing all these neurodevelopmental issues in kids like ADHD, autism, learning disorders, dyslexia, all those things. This is a big component of it, you guys. If these pesticides get into the bloodstream and cross that blood-brain barrier, they can damage the brain. It's not good. So definitely something to think about, obviously reduce exposure. Again, if you can't afford organic, just, soak it in water and the word that I'm forgetting, baking soda. That's the word I'm thinking of. So baking soda and water, you guys, if you can't afford organic. Otherwise, just do your best to shop at local farmers markets. That is the best place to get produce. So if you guys have any questions, any comments, anything that you want to share in the comments, please do below. And if you like this episode, please hit that subscribe button right below and like this episode, and I'll see you on the next one.